Hi, everybody. I'm a very enthusiastic and grateful member of the Al-Anon family group, so my name is Chere F. Thank you guys so much for the honor of speaking a little bit and sharing my story about the Al-Anon family groups and how recovery from both Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon has changed my life, my husband's life, and our family as a whole. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much for the honor. Luis, thank you so much for wherever you're at. Thank you so much for the phone call. Met him in service. It's the best way to make friends is just get in the middle of your program and do service. I also want to thank whoever put on the dinner, and can we give him a round of applause and thank him. I love it when I don't have to plan what's for dinner, so thank you. That was great. So I just want to share really quickly what brought me to Al-Anon, what happened, what it was like, and what's going on today. Back in August of 2001, my husband is a late-stage chronic alcoholic, and he is in the intensive care unit, critical care unit at the hospital with pancreatitis, acute pancreatitis, and he is dying from the disease. And the doctor comes up to me and says, if you don't get him to stop drinking, he will be dead in a matter of months. The words were, you need to get him to stop drinking. And nobody has ever said that to me before. Like, nobody had to tell me to get him to stop drinking. Somehow I already knew that. In my mind, I knew that it was my responsibility somehow, some way, to get the person that I love to stop drinking. And I didn't realize that alcoholism was a disease that could possibly end in death. And that's what we were facing at that time. And, you know, I had a problem with that diagnosis. I didn't want my husband to die. We had only been married a couple of months, had been with him for several years, but I sort of wanted that happily ever after, and he's part of that package. And him checking out on me was not, we were not in unity about that. Let me just say that. But for him, death was a solution. By that point, at the end of his drinking, it was a valid answer and solution for him. And so, of course, we didn't see eye to eye on what recovery or what that would even look like, what our life would look like. Long story short, my husband ended up in treatment, and that was where I was introduced to Al-Anon. I went there on 2 days before he was supposed to be discharged from treatment. And I was at this family meeting, and I'm the wife sitting in this meeting, and I know that there was other Al-Anon members there. And I told them, I'm going to bring him home tomorrow, and he's going to drink. What do I do? And, you know, in the beginning, they used to tell me, well, you don't know that. You don't know if he's going to drink. And I was like, yeah, I do, because the first week he was here in treatment, he called me and told me he was voted most likely to drink again. So he had a plan, and it was not to stop drinking, and I knew that. And I did not have a plan. I did not know what to do with a person that I love. Everything I had tried at this point had not worked. And I am the crazy, insane family member that Bill describes in the big book. I had tried everything and nothing had worked. Up until that point, you know, it was me telling him that it was affecting his kids. When we got together, we had children that were 6, 7, 8, and 9. My husband had been married and had 2 little girls. I had been married and had a son and a daughter, so he's my do-over husband. And we have these little kids, and my husband's drinking and driving with the girls in the car, right? And I had those conversations and trying to get him to see the light, you know, see how he's affecting the possibility of what could happen to our family. I was the wife that did the crying. I remember there was a day I was literally on my knees saying, if you love me, you'll stop drinking. And here's the deal. I know my husband loves me, but alcoholism is bigger. I said to him, if you love your girls, you'll stop drinking. And my husband cherishes his daughters, but alcoholism is bigger. And I didn't know that. I thought I could talk him into reason, to seeing the light, to changing that, because alcohol's the problem. If we just got rid of the alcohol, everything would be fine, right? And I'm the wife that did the loud. I would change my tone, I would change my words, I would change my volume, seeing if that would work. I would try anything. There were times where I wouldn't speak to him for days, the silent treatment. Just didn't speak to him for days. Those were the most favorite days of the week for him. I got quiet. The nagging stopped. So here he is. He's in treatment. I have to bring him home, and they said, go to Al-Anon. And I'm thinking, well, how is that going to fix him? What good is Al-Anon going to do? I didn't know anything about Al-Anon, never heard of it, hadn't really heard of Alcoholics Anonymous too much, just, had been in books or the movies or something. And they just said, go to Al-Anon. And so we left that Thursday night. My husband's drunk Friday morning, and I'm in my first Al-Anon meeting on Sunday. And that was October 21st of 2001. And during that time, I gave up. That powerlessness that we talk about in the first step, and the insanity in the second step, I knew it. I understood it. I embraced it. I gave up. And I'm in that Al-Anon meeting, and we have a bookmark in Al-Anon of the do's and don'ts. And I wish I got that bookmark that day, but I didn't. And there's a lot of didn'ts I didn't do. One, I didn't get that bookmark of the do's and don'ts. I also didn't get any literature. I didn't get a newcomer packet, and Al-Anon has wonderful pamphlets and a newcomer packet full of lots of great information. I didn't get that. I didn't get any names or numbers of anybody. But I did get a little booklet of meeting schedule. It's called the Where and When. And in Pierce County, that was where the majority of the AA meetings are in that book, and in the back is a couple of pages of the Al-Anon meetings. And that was given to me, and they said, here's your schedule, go to meetings. And so I started going to a Saturday morning meeting the following week. I started that Saturday morning ritual. My husband drank for the next 11 days. And after that, he was 12-stepped into Alcoholics Anonymous. And he was given a sponsor, and that was October 30th of 2001. And that was the day that continued sobriety entered our home. That was the day that recovery started in our home. Because from that day forward, my husband had a sponsor. He had somebody else that can fix him. He had somebody else that could run his life. He wasn't my problem no more. I gladly and gratefully handed him off to a sponsor and let go of that problem. But my husband went to a meeting every single day. He worked with a sponsor every week. He called a sponsor every day, and life started changing in our home. I'm going to a Saturday morning meeting when I can. When sobriety came into our home, we started getting involved in other things in church, and the kids are busy, and somehow we got involved in foster care. And my husband and I became foster parents, and so I focused on those kids that came into our home. And our first two little kids were 2 and 3 when they came to us in 2003. And they never left. They're still with us. They're 23 and 24 years old today. So we tell people that he's got 2, I got 2, we bought 2. So now we have a family of 6, right? And I got a lot of people to focus on and a lot of people to control. And so my hands are full. I'm busy. And so a Saturday morning meeting, I would fit it in if I can, right? In between dance and in between sports and in between whatever activities we had going on as a family. I would dabble in Al-Anon. And after a number of years, it became very obvious in our relationship that alcohol was not the problem. And I'm going to share with you why. When my husband stopped drinking, he discovered his opinion. Sound familiar to anybody? Just curious. And before when he was drinking, he just wanted to sit on the couch and he just wanted to drink and he just wanted to be left alone. That's it. But when sobriety started in our home, and now he's got an opinion about how I've been running the household for years. How much money we're spending, where it's going, how many sports the kids are involved in, all of the activities. He has an opinion about how the house looks, when laundry is being done, where I'm driving, what I'm driving, you name it, he had an opinion about it, and I heard it. And it was game on in our home. We fought more in that first year of sobriety than we ever did all the years previously. And it wasn't because he was drinking. So I can't blame it on the alcohol. And as time went on, he's changing, and I know he's changing because he's working with this sponsor. And if there was ever a problem in our home with one of the kids or with us, I would say to him, can you go please talk to your sponsor? And he'd go and talk to his sponsor, and he'd come back and he would say, Tom said this, and he'd have the solution. And his sponsor sponsored me, but he didn't know it for a really long time. But that sponsor had all the solutions, and we tried everything his sponsor suggested, and some of it worked. In fact, a lot of it worked, and some of it we got to do do-overs on. But we reached a point where we're just sort of roommates. We're not really fighting. We're not really getting along. We're raising kids together. But it's not a marriage of partnership. It's not a marriage with any affection. It's just we're living together in this house raising these children. And, you know, his sponsor encouraged us to, my husband actually went to his sponsor not the first time and said he wanted to get divorced. And his sponsor suggested another alternative. And one was for us to start having some morning meditation time together, that we meet in the morning together, and that we start going to concurrent AA and Al-Anon meetings. And I've always been open to what his sponsor suggested, because it had always worked before, right? It was like, oh, somebody knows the answers to how to do our life. And so the struggle I had with that is that I'm not a morning person. My husband likes to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I think that's the middle of the night. So that's, 5 a.m. is not really working. And we had to figure that out. But the meetings that we started going to a Friday night meeting in Buckley, and Al-Anon was upstairs and AA was downstairs. And we called it date night. I don't know why. We went out for dinner sometimes. We fought all the way to the meeting. I'd go upstairs, go to my meeting. He'd go downstairs to his AA meeting. And then after the meeting, we come out, get in the truck, and he's like, how did it go? How was your meeting? And I would say, it's anonymous. What's said at the meeting stays at the meeting. And I am such a brat, and I am not in the solution. And we did that for a very long time, but this is what happened. I'm going to a meeting every Friday, and I was encouraged to go to some more meetings. And things started changing. My husband challenged me to get a sponsor. We've been doing this for a little while, and he actually said to me, Al-Anon's not a real program, right? Like, you guys just do this thing? Now, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know that much about Al-Anon. I'd been going, but not really paying attention. I didn't have a sponsor. I wasn't working steps. I was just an attendee sitting in a chair. And so he's saying it's not a real program. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is. And he's like, well, how is it real? And I said, well, we have the same 12 steps that you have, except for the 12th step. And he goes, well, how's that? I said, well, in the 12th step in AA, you guys work with alcoholics. We figured out that doesn't work for us. So our 12th step is we work with others. So we get all of the others that you guys don't have. That's who we end up with. And he's just ratting at me, right? He's just poking the bear, and he's just saying, well, it's not real, and you don't take it serious, and da-da-da-da-da. And then he finally says to me, it's not a life or death program. Like, he says, you don't have a sponsor, you don't do this, you don't do that. And he says, it's not life or death for you. It's not a life or death program. And I said, yes, it is, because you're still alive. So here's the deal. He planted that seed because I knew about sponsorship, because AA had shown that. I had an opportunity to go to a lot of open AA meetings. And for those of you that offer the opportunity to have open AA meetings so that family members or friends can attend, you guys gave me hope in early recovery. I saw solution and serenity and a life that was God-led more than I ever saw in anything else in my life. And open AA meetings gave me the hope. It wasn't Al-Anon in the very beginning. But I knew about sponsorship, and it planted that seed, and I found my sponsor. And she was in my Friday night meeting, go figure. And I asked her to work with me, and she gave me my first reading assignment. And this is not a typical Al-Anon assignment, but she was my sponsor, so I'm going to do what she told me to do. And my first reading assignment was the first 164 pages of the big book. Now, I'm aware of the big book. It's been in my house for a couple of years. My husband was 4 months sober and came home from a meeting with a chapter, 2 Wives. He thought I should read it. Pretty sure I threw the book at him. But this is different because now I have a sponsor. And she says, read those first 164 pages and start meeting me on Wednesdays. And I did. Every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, I met my sponsor, and we started going through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is where my life changed. That was where my life changed. When I started learning and applying those principles that we have in our 12 steps, and later on learning those principles and in that we have in our 12 traditions and our 12 concepts. But I didn't know who I was and why I ticked the way I tick until I started sitting down with my sponsor. And I will tell you this, the most important step I ever worked was the 4th step. And my sponsor lined out the columns, and we sat down doing the 5th step with her and trying to figure out what's the motivator, what's really running the show, what are the defects that are interrupting the flow, having me fall short of who God wants me to be, for myself and for others. And come to find out after the pattern is revealed, it's fear. Fear is the biggest motivator in my life. It's why I do what I do. It's why I try to control everything that's going on in my world, because I'm so afraid of what's going to happen. I don't know what's on the other side of the bridge, so I better control whatever I think is on the other side of the bridge before we get to the bridge. And that was an aha moment, because I don't come across as somebody who's fearful. Often back then, and you can ask my adult children now, I'm the person that came across raging and slamming doors and throwing things. I wasn't afraid, but that was what the behavior that I threw at my family. And it was because I was so afraid of what was going to happen and how I was going to feel about it. I will share with you that things started happening in our home around that time as well. My husband's oldest daughter, we just call our kids our kids, right? They don't have labels, they're just our kids. So our oldest had lived with us previously when she was 13 years old. And she had, sorry, I lost my time, so I hope somebody's timing me. Oh, I got it. She had lived with us when she was 13 years old, and this is before I got my sponsor. So I'm going to tell you this is crazy stepmom, right? And I'm trying to control the house. And at some point in that relationship and the dynamics that she's living with us, we had a fallout. It was a full-on meltdown. I'm a nuclear reactor when I react. I don't know how to respond to things. I just blow up. And I gave an ultimatum to my husband that she needed to go, that it was either her or I. But we weren't both going to live in the same house. And my husband had to go and talk to his sponsor, and he talked to a trusted friend, and he figured out that, his daughter needed to move out of the house. And as I'm working with my sponsor and we're going through these steps, that was the first thing that showed up on my amends. The harm that I had done, the things that I had caused and created in our home, and me trying to control the circumstances, how it affected the family. And it was shortly after that we were introduced to traditions. And we had gone to a convention up in Bellingham, and there was a speaker up there that talked about the traditions and relationships. And my husband and I dived into it. We met with a couple that used to live there in Blaine, Dave and Polly P., and they sat down with us, and they gave us their packet, the traditions and relationships. And my husband and I have been doing that packet and taking other couples and doing workshops on the traditions for the last 12 plus years. And what Dave and Polly gave us in that opportunity to learn about other spiritual principles gave us a chance to heal our marriage. It gave me a chance to start parenting different in our home. And I had this opportunity one more time. That oldest daughter is living with us, and she's a senior this time. And I was a little nervous. I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little nervous. She's coming back into our home full time. I know what living with her looks like part-time. And now she's going to be here every day. But there's a difference. One, I got a sponsor in my back pocket. I also have a husband that I'm trying to work the traditions with, and we're in unity, or we're trying to work on our unity every single day. So we're doing life differently, and I'm feeling about life differently than how I used to. And so that kid comes into our house, and we have house rules. Not much has changed, except I've changed. I'm not as controlling as I used to be. And she started finding a safe place, right? We enrolled her in her senior year in school, and we asked her, if she wanted to continue to work and do all the things that she was doing. We basically gave her a lot of autonomy, but there were still some ground rules. And there was a day early in her senior year that my husband got a call from the school counselor, and our daughter had a plan to kill herself. And my husband calls me, and he tells me what was happening, and he says, I don't know what to do. What do we do? See, I'm the problem solver in the home, right? I'm the fixer, I'm the troubleshooter, I'm the manager. And I called that 1-800 number that we call when people are in crisis. and explained about my kid, and I said, I don't know what to do. And we got her in mental health that same day. And we started about a 6-7 month journey with our daughter, not knowing any day what the day was going to bring. Was she going to stay alive? Was she not? And one more time, I found myself in a place where somebody that I love doesn't want to live, and I am powerless. Nothing I say or do is going to make this life different for our child. And I remember my sponsor encouraged me to go to more meetings, so I upped my game. I started going to 3 to 5 meetings a week. She encouraged me to get involved in service. I got very involved in service in Al-Anon, and she encouraged me to call other parents in the program and say, how do you do the day? And to go to my meetings and be honest and say, I'm really scared today. I don't have a solution today for my kid. And they would say, we love you, and keep coming back and just do today. God's got this. And that's what we did her whole entire senior year. My husband, his solution, he just wanted to duct tape her in her bedroom. That was his solution. Just never let her leave home. But we were loved on and rallied behind in that time in our lives. And I was different with her. You know, her dad and I had unity, and she couldn't get in between us. And there were some rough days, man. There were some days where she's screaming at me and telling me that she hates me, and I'm just like, I know, but I love you. And I would just keep doing what I was taught and what I was told in Al-Anon. So we survived that, and, you know, there was a couple of years that went by, and my sponsor had said to me, do you feel like today is, you know, now, do you feel like you're in a place where you can do some face-to-face amends with that daughter? And I didn't for a long time under sponsor suggestion, because she needed to see that I was a different person before I did a face-to-face amends. Not that I'm going to tell her I'm going to do life differently, but I'm going to show her that I'm going to do life differently. So I'm at this time in my life, and she says, I think it's time you do that face-to-face with your kid. So I call her. She's 19 years old. She's in trade school in Olympia, and I said, hey, I'm on my amends, and our kids grew up in the programs. They were in AA and Al-Anon meetings all the time, and so she knows what the 9 Steps all about. And I said to her, you know, I've gone over this list with my sponsor, and you're first on my list. And I know my kid, and I know that she was thinking, well, damn straight I am. And we made these arrangements, and we met at a Starbucks in Olympia, and I went over my list with her, and I talked about where I was at fault and where I was to blame and how I wanted to be different. And that I totally understood why she must have felt the way she felt and why she behaved the way she behaved. And I had no animosity and no resentment, and that I loved her no matter what. And she's crying, and I'm crying, and we're stealing all the napkins off all the tables in Starbucks. And I asked her at that time, I said, what would you like in our relationship? And I was just hoping she would give me a chance, that she would just give me a shot at having a relationship with her, because honestly, she should just turn me off and say, I want nothing ever to do with you. She could have easily have said that, but she didn't. And she just said, Sheree, you know, just check on me every now and then, which means send me a text message. That's what it means. And I'll take it, right? That was an opening, and it was a gift, and I am not going to throw that away. And from that moment on, you know, she's 19 years old, and she's in school, and I am doing whatever I can so that she knows that she's an important person in my life. And I'm sending her messages saying, I love you, and I'm thinking about you today. Good luck today. Whatever was going on in her life, I would just send a message. I didn't get in her face. I just loved her as she allowed me to love on her. You know, and as time had gone on, I'll just fast forward. There is a time in our life with her where she is getting married to a gentleman that happens to be 26 years older than my daughter. I have a son-in-law that's older than me. And people have an opinion. Her family members have an opinion about her marrying this man that's 26 years older than her. And I'm the person she's calling. I'm sitting in the Costco parking lot, and she's calling me, and she's crying because she just had this huge blow up with her mom. And she's like, why is she so mean? And why is she saying these things? And why? And I just would listen to her, and I would say to her, you know, your mom just loves you. And she's probably saying these things because she's so afraid of what's going to happen. She's afraid maybe you're making a bad decision. She's afraid you might be hurt. She's afraid of the fallout, and she can't help you. She's afraid, and she's going to act really poorly. Do you remember when I used to do that? And she goes, oh, yeah. And so we continue talking, and at that time, she's thanking me for just being there. She's thanking me for listening to her, and she said, "Chere, you know what you are? You're my bonus mom." And that's what Al-Anon gave me. It gave me a new title from an evil stepmother to a bonus mom. And to this day, and my daughter's 34 years old, to this day, I still send her text messages. She moves all the freaking time. And every time she moves, I send her a housewarming gift. Thank you, free shipping. But she's an important person in my life. She lives in Arkansas. And we have to intentionally make time to see her and to continue that relationship. She said, "Will you please just check on me every now and then?" And I have never stopped checking on her now and then. I had a birthday card from her recently, and she hand wrote this birthday card. It wasn't one you just stationary Hallmark card. I mean, she wrote this birthday card. And on that birthday card, she said, "I see the fingerprints of God all over our relationship." And, to me, the reason why I share that story about the amends is because I want to share that just because I know that I'm a different person and that I'm behaving differently with this person, but not acknowledging who I was back then and how that must have affected her, I don't think that we would have that relationship today. We have a little spiritual book called As We Understood, and in that book, it says something. See what happens when I don't bring my notes? It talks about actions being a fantasy, right? That if I don't take the action, knowing that I know that I need to be this better person, but if I don't take that action, then it's just a fantasy. And I'm so grateful that my sponsor encouraged me to do those amends with her. I will tell you that I have a different sponsor to this day. I met her on Zoom, and I don't know about you guys, but when our state shut down 4 years ago, I really struggled. I really struggled that I didn't have meetings. I really struggled that I wasn't meeting with sponsees, and I really struggled that my sponsor had disappeared on me. And I had really struggled with the loneliness that COVID brought about. And thank God for Zoom, because it gave me an opportunity to meet people. It gave me an opportunity to be of service one more time. And in my district in Pierce County, I started all of our meetings that were registered at the time, I put them on Zoom. So they all had Zoom meetings to attend. And during that time, we were supposed to have a day in Al-Anon in person. And of course, we couldn't do the workshop that day because we were shut down in April of 2020. And so I took one of the workshop panels we were supposed to do. It's on a book that we have called Discovering Choices. It's one of my favorite books that we have in Al-Anon. And I put a Zoom workshop together. And so we took 6 weeks. I invited speakers to come every week, and we shared it with our district, and we shared it in the area. And we went through that book just as speakers were sharing their experience, strength, and hope on the topics of that. And because it was so successful, I invited two of my friends to join me, and we continue that. We've been doing that workshop for the last 4 years. We've never stopped. And over the last 4 years, we've gone through over almost every major art or publication that Al-Anon puts out. And Al-Anon has a huge library of books, just sharing. And we have a committee today. It was me in the beginning, and I asked 2 friends to join me because we're a we program. And today my committee has somewhere between 18 and 25 people that run this meeting. They live in the United States, they live in Canada, and they live in India. We have members that come to this Zoom workshop every Wednesday night. We get somewhere between 200 and 400 people every week. We're in the book Intimacy and Alcoholic Relationships. And if you're a guy, I know that you're thinking it's all about sex. But if you want to know what the book is about, I'm going to encourage you to look up the Wednesday workshop series, and then you'll find out what the book's about. But that service position has been a huge gift to me as a person. It has opened up that we are a worldwide fellowship, first of all. I was introduced to my new sponsor. She was one of the speakers that I had asked to share, and she has helped me over the last couple of years deal with a difficult relationship that I have. Those 2 youngest kids that we adopted, like I shared, they're 23 and 24 years old. And Our youngest son is homeless. He lives in his car. He works when he feels like working, and I don't know much more about his life. I'll get text messages from him like, Happy Mother's Day, I love you, Mom. I'll tell him I have mail. Your mail's here, and then I get ignored. I see him on the holidays and the birthdays and that type of stuff, and he lets me love him where he's at. And Al-Anon's taught me just to love him where he's at. I will also share with you that my youngest daughter graduated in 2019 and moved out of our house that summer, and I have not seen or spoken to her since. She's cut out all of her family, all of our family, and all of her biological family out of her life. And she's living a life today that I really, really struggle with. What I see and what I hear breaks my heart. But Al-Anon has taught me that I need to focus on myself and figure out how to love her where she's at. And I'll be honest with you, those first year that she moved out, I was angry. I was hurt. I was resentful. I was bitter. I did not have one good feeling in my heart about her. Anytime she popped up in my head, man, I was in my resentment. And in my 10th step and 11th step, I knew that I wasn't going to get anywhere with this. I knew that it was harmful to me. And that new sponsor, I called her up one day and I said, I need help with this. I almost hate my kid. And I don't want to live like this. That's not who I am. I don't know how to almost hate somebody, but I don't know how to love her where she's at and what she's doing. She ended up getting pregnant and having a child. And my sponsor, and I remember her saying this, she goes, well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to pray for her. And I said, no, thanks. And I could sit back and laugh about that today because how ironic is it that I'm calling somebody to help me, and as soon as they give me a suggestion that might help me, I say, no, I don't want that to help me. I'm making the choice that that's not going to help me. And she didn't hate me, and she didn't scold me, and she says, okay, fine, can you pray for her child? Can you pray for her baby? And I was like, yes, I can do that. I can definitely pray for her baby. And I started that process of every day praying for her. And I will tell you this, in my continued journey, in that continued inventory today, and in that 11th step of asking for God's wisdom and knowledge of how I'm supposed to love on my daughter, today I have 100% peace and love and joy in my heart. When I think about her, this is what I do. I had a thought about her, this was about a year or so ago. I had this thought about her that my husband and I ride motorcycles. And I remember this when she was young. She's sitting on the back of my bike, and we're going down this road, and she's this little 8, 9-year-old girl, and she's doing the 2-finger wave at all the other bikes going by, and she has this habit of falling asleep on the back of my bike, and so we do this game where I tap her leg and she taps my shoulder, so I know she's awake, and that memory popped up, and for the first time in a long time, I'm crying because I love her. And I miss that little girl. And I want the best for that little girl. And how I continue to do today is that when those memories pop up, and they almost do on a daily basis, I put them in a journal to my daughter. Now, she will never see this journal, because this journal isn't about her, it's about me. It's about where my heart is. It's about my spiritual progress. And I think it's where God wants me to be, just loving her where she's at. And I don't know what the future holds, and guess what? I'm not freaked out about it. I'm good with whatever the future holds for her. I want the best for her. That's progress because of these 12 steps, because of good sponsorship. And I'm going to close with this. A number of years ago, my mom came to me and she started talking about how she connected with long-distance relatives in Norway. And she mentioned that they're having a family reunion, and wouldn't it be great to meet family relatives in Norway? Her grandmother immigrated in 1800 sometime, and my mom was very close with their grandma. So she grew up listening about all this family and growing up hearing about Norway. And my husband overheard this conversation, and later he says to me, I want you to take your mom to Norway. And we didn't have a lot of money back then, and that was a huge gift. So I planned the trip. And we attend this family reunion. We're the only 2 people from America. It's on the 4th of July in Norway. and they put all the decorations red, white, and blue. And they were so excited their American cousins came. And I got to see where my great-grandmother grew up, and I got to see where my great-great-grandmother lived. And we're up on this meadow, seriously a Sound of Music moment, walking through the fields and the trees are there. And it dawned on me because I'm hearing all of these stories about the women that I come from. And I come from a long line of women that love their families. And that's who I am. I love my families a lot. And Al-Anon has taught me to love them a lot better than I used to. But in all honesty, this whole entire trip was totally planned around an Al-Anon meeting in Oslo. It was the Monday night English-speaking meeting. It was the only one that they had in the country. I emailed them and told them I was coming. Don't tell me I don't plan things, because I totally do. And so my mom and I take a taxi to this Monday night meeting, and I'm so excited because I'm going to have that first international Al-Anon meeting, and we get to this beautiful church in downtown Oslo. There's like 9 doors, and I'm circling the church, and I'm trying to open all of the doors, and long story short, nobody came. Nobody that had the key. Obviously, they didn't get the email. And so I'm sitting down on the steps of this church, and my mom's sort of like patting my back because I'm pouting. And this young man comes up to me and starts speaking to me, and I'm just like, I don't understand you. And then in English, he says, is there an Al-Anon meeting here? And I said, they're supposed to be, but they didn't come with the key today. Are you looking for Al-Anon? And he sits down next to me, and he starts telling me about his girlfriend who lives in London, and that she's an alcoholic. And she just started recovering in Alcoholics Anonymous. And they told her that her boyfriend needs to go to Al-Anon. And so I looked at him and I said, why are you going to an English-speaking meeting? There's a lot of Al-Anon meetings in Norway. This is the only English one. And he says, I want to improve my English so I can speak to my girlfriend. So I told him to go to more meetings, told him to find the meetings he understands, get the literature that he could read, and just to keep coming back. And then he leaves. And that taxi comes back, and I'm heading back to the hotel, and I am so discouraged because I did not get my Al-Anon meeting. And I am not spiritually fit 24/7, so it took me a moment to finally figure out that I wasn't in there at that church on that night to get an Al-Anon meeting. I was supposed to be there to bring the message of Al-Anon to this young man. And that's what I do today. That is where I'm at today. Every day is about how can I share the message of Al-Anon. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous and because of Al-Anon, my life is forever changed, and I am forever grateful. Thank you, guys.